Greetings and salutations. This is David Duford at buylifeinsuranceforburial.com, where I help people like you get affordable final expense life insurance to pay for funeral costs. And in today's topic, we are going to be discussing the difference between life insurance and pre-need funeral insurance to hopefully help you determine what's best for you. So most likely the reason you're watching this is because you have reached a point in your life where you're concerned about taking care of funeral-related expenses. They could be related to burial or cremation, and you're looking at the possibility of purchasing some sort of insurance program, whether at the funeral home or through a regular life insurance policy. And you want to know what maybe the difference is and what would suit you best. So if that describes you, then you're going to find that this educational material will be perfect for you, because what the goal is today is to present to you differences and better explain how they work so you can better understand if one of these particular solutions is right for you. So let's get started. So my name is David Duford. I am the owner and founder of Buy Life Insurance for Burial. Again, I help people across the nation with their life insurance needs, especially related to final expense life insurance. And what we're going to do today is give you a little bit of overview of what to expect. First of all, we're going to define the difference between what is life insurance, the difference between funeral or pre-need life insurance, and what both of these particular plans pay for. Then we're going to talk about life insurance for final expenses and the pros and cons. Same thing for pre-need insurance, the pros and cons as well. And then we're going to do a cost comparison. I'm going to show you an idea of where pre-need price points are, and as well as what you get in return for purchasing. Then we're going to talk about the same thing as it relates to life insurance options for final expenses, as well as premiums you pay. Then we're going to show you the differences and qualification processes for both products. It's pretty important to discuss. Then I'm going to give you my final thoughts as well as next steps that you can take. So my name is David Duford. I am the owner and founder of buylifeinsuranceforburial.com. I have been licensed as a life insurance agent since the year 2011. Also have helped over 3,000 families with their life insurance needs since I started. I'm also a published author of the, you can see down there in the corner, the official guide to buying final expense insurance. It's a short pamphlet to help people understand the different options out there and to assist them making the right decision. In addition to all this, I also recruit and train agents and help them understand how final expense life insurance works so that they can help people in their own community with the same kind of questions that you have, but on a face-to-face basis. And last but not least, I'm married, have 4 children, with my newest one on the way as of the recording of this video. So let's talk about what life insurance does and what it pays for. Life insurance simply can be defined as a cash payout payable upon the death of the insured. So the question is, well, why would someone need money when someone dies? Pretty simple. And there are several reasons. First of all, it's used to provide an ample supply of money in case of an untimely death. So for example, there's lots of reasons life insurance is used. One reason is to pay down a mortgage when someone untimely passes away. So for example, if the breadwinner in the family dies unexpectedly and someone owes, and they owe $100,000 on a mortgage, this life insurance plan comes to life, pays a death claim, and that mortgage is paid off entirely, so the surviving spouse and children don't have to stress about how the bill is going to be made when the breadwinner is gone. It can also be used as an income supplement or income replacement policy. So the perfect example is where a senior couple lives together, and their combined income, their lifestyle requires a combined income, but whereas if they pass away, there would be definite problems with keeping that pace of lifestyle for one spouse or the other. So a life insurance plan can be designed to just pay out a death benefit to the surviving spouse. So in that way, she can live off, or he can live off of the death benefit for a period of time and transition from where their lifestyle was to where it will be on a much smoother basis. Also, life insurance can be used in the corporate and business environment. We call this key man insurance when we have a rainmaker, somebody who's very important to the operation of a business. If they were to die, it would have major impacts on the business itself. So insuring key people in your organization in order to pay the business a death benefit if something happened is also an intelligent way to ensure the integrity of the business if that key person were to go away. And then lastly, what we're discussing also to pay for funeral expenses and final expenses. Why? Because people die and they costs money to be put away. And so life insurance policy can provide the proceeds for that. So bottom line, life insurance can pay for anything the beneficiary wants to pay off. All of these things mentioned and more are something that can definitely be used. And the thing is, with any life insurance policy, it's normally understood well in advance what it would be used for under certain circumstances. So for example, if you're looking for a life insurance plan to pay for your burial costs, many times people sit down with their kids, explain to them what's going to happen so that they know what to expect when the time comes. So let's transition and talk a little bit about what pre-need life insurance is. So pre-need is a unique form of life insurance. It's typically sold at the funeral home, and it's designed to pay for the full cost of the funeral. And what happens is, and what makes it unique is the following. So first of all, one of the biggest selling points that's used is that it locks in and covers the price of final arrangements. So for a funeral or cremation. So when we say the price points of final arrangements, what I'm referencing is the actual item by item elements of the funeral. So if we're buried, we have the casket, the hearse, the opening and closing fee, the service fees, embalming, so on and so forth. So in exchange for buying one of these plans, the benefit to you is that the funeral home agrees to lock those prices at that rate so that they'll never go up. So, and then on top of that, it acts as an insurance program. So if for the period of time you pay on the pre-need plan, if you were to die prior to that, again in a timely fashion, you have the insurance of the policy pay up what is required to the funeral home, so there's no denial of service. So it gives you the peace of mind knowing you are insured. And it can provide payment flexibility for those that cannot pay in one lump sum or over a small period of time. So what a lot of these plans are first offered are what we call single pay plans, where you pay a lump sum up front, or you pay, for example, a 2 or 3 year payment plan, just like paying off a car. It's the best way to describe it. Now, there's some that go 5+ years out to 10 years. And we'll talk about those a little bit later and why those aren't so hot, but we'll save that for the later portion of this presentation. So now let's talk about why people buy life insurance for final expenses. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons, because again, what you're trying to do here is compare, should I get a life insurance policy for funeral expenses, or should I buy a pre-need plan? So let's talk about the benefits. So first of all, with a life insurance plan, you have full control of deciding who you want your beneficiary to be. If you want to entrust somebody that's close to you, like a daughter or a spouse, you decide that money goes to them. With pre-need plans, as you'll see later, that's not the case. Also, the premium sizes are much better priced with a life insurance plan than a pre-need of the same value. So what I mean by this is that many times they say a $10,000 life insurance plan is usually a third of the price, maybe no more than half the price, less than a pre-need plan. So for a budget-conscious person, a final expense life insurance plan usually is much less expensive, and while providing the same advantages and benefits. The proceeds can be used for something other than a funeral. One big motivation of buying a life insurance plan is not just to cover final expenses, but it's also to do a combination of other things, such as mentioned before, namely to replace income or pay down other debts. With the pre-need plan, as you'll see, it's just for the particular funeral they're scheduling. There's better underwriting flexibility. This is very big. A lot of people, as they think about these kind of products, are in the period of their life where they've had health problems, or maybe minor or major. And so final expense life insurance companies provide lots of flexibility on underwriting. You can get all sorts of conditions that normally people would think, that's uninsurable, but end up being totally fine. Atrial fibrillation, COPD, past history of cancer, heart disease, smoking, diabetes. These are all insurable conditions that are easily accounted for with many life insurance products that do final expense coverage. Let's talk about some drawbacks now. So if you were to get a final expense life insurance plan, probably the biggest drawback is that there's no pre-planning element to it. It simply is a life insurance contract that's designed to pay a death benefit to whomever you want. But what you get in your funeral and how you want it to proceed is not a part automatically of that plan. That's something you're going to have to sit down and either go to the funeral home yourself and plan it out, or just sit down and write and involve a loved one in so that they know that what your wishes are done the right way. Also, purchasing the wrong kind of life insurance may cause irreversible damage. And what I mean by this is there's some plans out there that are designed to go up in price They're designed to cancel at a future date, say at 80, and some are even forcing a period of time where you have no coverage even as you pay on it. It's like paying for the car that you can't drive. So you have to be aware that it's really good to work with an expert when it comes to looking at life insurance, because a lot of the stuff that comes through the mail that you see on TV, there's strings attached, and so many people just miss it because these companies are smart and they know how to kind of not hide it or even deceive, but bury it in the fine print where a lot of people miss it. Now, not all of final expense life insurance plans are paid for life. So while their premiums are lower, life insurance plans or final expense life insurance plans typically stretch out for the entirety of your life. So if you take out a plan at 60 and then die at 90, you have to pay until you die. Whereas with a paid up plan, it can be what we call a paid up within 5 to 10 years, generally speaking. So you don't have permanent payments the rest of your life. Some people hate payments. Now, I say not all final expense plans do that because you have paid up policies that you can go after. And this is something I can show you too in more detail if that's something you're interested in. Okay, so let's talk about the pros and cons of pre-need funeral insurance. So one of the biggest things I like about a pre-need plan is there's definite pre-planning in place. So a person who is really concerned about making sure that each item of the funeral is done the way they want it, a pre-need plan provides for that option. You name exactly the items you want at a stated price, and you get it. And there's no question who's going to get paid. Sometimes people feel weird about writing up a life insurance plan with a beneficiary that maybe not one of the kids that really wants it. There's a lot of questions you got to ask about who do you really trust. With a pre-need plan, you're naming the funeral home as a beneficiary. They receive the money, and because you're setting the prices up with them. So you don't have to worry about who's going to split the money and who's going to have hurt feelings or anything like that. Also, with the fact that you select the items you want, you also affix the prices to be the same. They don't go up. So there's inflation protection. So if there was ever huge inflation prior to your death, you know that you've got everything locked in place as to where it should be. So whatever it is what it is. The policy is portable. This is very important for seniors, especially, who are snowbirds. They live in Michigan in the summer, live in Florida in the winter, and who knows where they're going to die. And so these policies are very commonly accepted at all sorts of funeral homes. And so you don't have to worry, is this good in one state or another? Disadvantages of the plan. Probably the biggest disadvantage of this plan, because I really like this plan. I think it makes a lot of sense for some people, but the biggest disadvantage is just very expensive. And a lot of people just don't really just get turned off by the fact it's so expensive and how much you pay into it is such a tremendous multiple of the value that you get. In many cases, what we're talking about is a double to triple the amount of a final expense plan. So if you get a $50,000 final expense life insurance plan for $10,000 in coverage, a $50 a month plan, you expect to pay $125 to $150 for the same thing through a pre-need plan for 10 years. Not even to mention if we go to 7, 5 or less, it'll start to tweak up a little bit. And again, the disadvantage with these plans is the funeral home is the beneficiary. If you have other ideas besides a pre-need plan as to what you want any sort of death benefit to pay, well, you can't really use this plan. You're going to have to get a life insurance plan for something else other than that. So let's do some cost comparison real quick. So pre-need is broken down into the following. You've got single pay plans, multi-year pay plans, and what that means is usually 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10-year pays. And usually what happens is, when I say the higher the plan, the higher the total cost, or longer the plan, the higher the total cost. What I mean by that is if you add up all the premiums in a 10-year plan, the totality is a lot more than, say, a 2 or 3 year plan. And so what happens is, while the plans are going to vary, what I have seen in my experience is the 7 to 10-year plans where a lot of people who are on a fixed income go that aren't necessarily making a killing in retirement. And for those in their 50s and 60s that start these plans, you're looking at $125 to $175 a month each out the door. And that's something you're going to pay for 7 to 10 years. So a lot of people don't like these plans as much as there are great benefits to them because the premiums are very high. And when we're talking premiums like this, a lot of people kind of balk at it. So let me show you a case study once I saw. So I met a lady who was paying $150 a month, and her plan was a 10-year paid-up plan with the funeral home for a $10,000 burial. And what happened was, when he started to add the premiums, obviously $150 a month for 12 months is $1,800 for 10 years is $18,000 in total premiums paid. However, for an $18,000 premium paid in, she only got a $10,000 value burial. So we have to do the math on this and ask, is it worth it? Is it worth paying $8,000 more into it to plan out your funeral, to protect against the potential for inflation, which to me is overstated? Whereas you could get and save tremendous amounts of money paying a quarter or paying a half of this at least, and get more coverage if not the same, and not have your money go all to the funeral home but leave the extra behind through a life insurance policy. So it's, to me, the way I describe it, it's like running down to a funeral home, or it's like running down to a car lot, finding the best car you love, and then overpaying it by $18,000. It's kind of silly. So in my mind, I'm skeptical if it's really worth it when you're looking at these 7 and 10-year pay plans, which a lot of people go to. Now, there's some people with the means that can do it in 1, 2, 3 years, and the difference is negligible. And they may not need life insurance because they've got other stuff set up to where it's not a concern. But for me, in this particular situation, you got to ask yourself, is it worth overpaying to that extent for the benefits that you get? If you're not sure, life insurance becomes more of a good idea. And let me kind of show you what you can do price-wise. And we're going to look at 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds for a $10,000 life pay plan. So hang with me. I'm going to port you over to my screen where I've got some quotes, and so you can take a look for yourself. So what we're looking at here are a 60-year-old male, non-smoker, $10,000 rate. As you can see, you're looking at the upper 30s to the mid 40s for $10,000 in coverage. And again, keep in mind, you're looking at about $125 a month comparison with a pre-need plan on a 7 to 10 year basis. For a 70-year-old, $10,000 non-smoking male, you're looking at somewhere between low 60s to mid 70s. And for a 60-year-old female, $10,000 non-smoker life pay plan, you're looking at upper 20s to mid 30s. And for a 70-year-old, $10,000 non-smoker female rate, you're looking at upper 40s to mid 50s. One thing I talk about with people when it comes to talking about getting the best plan, I always like to make sure that my clients understand that the life insurance qualification is a two-sided coin. First of all, you certainly want to get something that is a good use of your money, a good value, a good premium. But on the flip side, you also want to make sure whatever it is you're qualifying for, you can actually qualify for. So you have price and you have underwriting. Both of those have to be satisfied in order to get a good deal, or to get the best deal, as we would say. So all else equal, life insurance products, when compared to pre-need plans, offer more flexibility in underwriting. Let me give you some examples on conditions that a life insurance plan can cover. If you've had a history of cancer, heart problems, if you've had neurological problems like Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, if you've had behavioral health problems, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, stuff like COPD, kidney problems, diabetes, I think I mentioned. All of these things, in most circumstances, can be fully approved for first day full coverage. My experience with pre-need plans is that because there's not as much competition out there, the client is not exposed to necessarily the best value for what they would afford to pay, because many times these pre-need plans, their underwriting for the insurance side is very strict. I have seen people who were rated into a 2-year no coverage period of time just because they had depression. That affects like 20-25% of the nation. There's a lot of people who take antidepressant pills that just have short-term anxiety, or they've got diabetes, which a lot of people have as well. So what happens is you end up paying more over the length of time that you apply for, and then you don't have coverage for a period of time. So it's not a good deal. And so that flexibility may be a concern if your shape is not perfect and you need flexibility. That is the problem with pre-need insurance underwriting. You're just not going to see the same kind of underwriting flexibility that you would with life insurance, and it could cost you tremendously. So for example, if you had one of these issues that prevented you from getting coverage with a pre-need plan and you died within the first 2 years and there was no coverage provided, then is it really worth all that effort and going and all the premium you paid because you're not fully covered and the funeral's not fully paid for if you could have gotten it through a life insurance plan? It's a question you got to ask yourself. And that's why I think life insurance is really good, especially if you've had any kind of even minor health issues. It's worth taking a second look at to make sure you're going to get the best deal. So let me give you my final thoughts on pre-need life insurance versus regular life insurance. I think pre-need life insurance is a good value when you don't really have a budget issue. If you can pay for this thing in 1 or 2 or 3 years, it's probably the best deal you're going to get, especially if you really value the pre-planning setup. So a lot of people have lost loved ones and they're forced in a position where they've got to pick out the casket, they've got to pick out the dress and the flowers, and they don't want to do any of that because they're trying to mourn their dead. And it's very difficult on a family member to have to make these decisions, so they're very adamant. People that really like these plans and doing these because you get to take care of that. So your kids don't have to, your spouse doesn't have to. So if you really think pre-planning is really important and budget isn't so much, this is a good plan to consider. And bottom line, if you appreciate having a policy 100% dedicated to paying off the funeral home for these expenses, then this is a good plan. Whereas with life insurance, people who go the life insurance route typically are a little bit more budget conscious. They may look at $150 premium for the burial plan and just kind of scoff at it and cringe because they can't afford it. Whereas maybe a $60, $70, $80 a month deal with a life insurance plan that ends up giving them even more coverage than what the pre-need plan, they'll take that all day because the value proposition is there, and plus the premium is nearly $1,000 less a year, and that goes a long way for some people. Also, when the insured wants more than just a policy to pay for funeral costs, it's a smart idea to get a life insurance policy. Many of us have more than one goal with a life insurance plan. At least that's my experience with my clients. So if you don't want to just have a pre-need plan or a funeral-related payment plan, and you want to add into that plan the ability to give money to your spouse or loved ones or pay off debts, a life insurance plan is a better combination package. And bottom line, people who like life insurance appreciate the flexibility of deciding on beneficiaries, and they like the control to it. And I will say this, a lot of people buy life insurance and for burial reasons, and they don't go to funeral home because they're skeptical. I'm not validating any of that. The funeral home business has an element of used car salesman aspect to it. I can tell you, I don't feel that way personally. I think funeral homes do great work, especially at some of the most emotional times in people's lives. My experience has always been positive. I think back when my grandmother died, back in Michigan, the team at that particular funeral home was great. They did a great job of showing her. It was very professional. They were ready to help when asked, and they weren't lording over you at the same time. They allowed you to have your privacy. So I think highly of funeral directors. But some people just have really bad experiences and don't want to do anything with them until the very end. So let's talk about how to qualify. If you're interested in a pre-need plan, I'll leave you with this before I tell you about what I can do for you. With a pre-need plan, go to the funeral home of your choice and tell them you're interested in a pre-need plan. The way the pre-need plan is set up, the work is that you contact the funeral home and they offer you the insurance. I can't offer it to you because I'm not a funeral director. In most states, you got to be a funeral director to do that. However, if you're interested in a life insurance plan and you think those benefits of that plan are more in your line of what you're looking for, the application process is simple. You'll want to get an agent you want to work with, which I'll, of course, nominate myself. And after you and I have a conversation, I'll draw you up a quote, show you what I got, and we can do everything over the phone or over the internet. There's no personal visit necessary these days. There's no exams either with most of these products, and usually you get a decision within several days to weeks. And then within that same period of time, you get your policy in the mail, and that's it. It's very simple, very straightforward. Just do as you're told and go through the process, and you get life insurance covering and taking care of things and giving you peace of mind fairly quickly. So final steps, if this is something you want to do, visit my website. It's buylifeinsuranceforburial.com. You can request a quote easiest by going to the contact box at the top, sending me a message that way, or there's a pop-up box at the bottom of the screen. You can just send a message that way. Otherwise, call me at 888-626-0439. You can speak to me live that way. And if you've liked this video, if you're watching it on YouTube, please thumb it up, as well as leave a comment below if you have any questions. And make sure you subscribe. I do a lot of videos like this all the time. My name is David Duford at buylifeinsuranceforburial.com. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.